Welcome to Zimmerman Podcast, episode 129. Today is week 17 in our series, The Path Back to You. If you're new to this series, we are taking 1 year to discover how to become who you were meant to be. Each month we dive into a new topic, and this month our focus is removing shame and shedding limiting beliefs. Today we're talking about how removing should from your vocabulary removes shame from your life. Let's get started and take this next step on the path back to you. All right, you ready? Let's do it. I'm Jessica Zimmerman, and this is Zimmerman Podcast. I'm a serial entrepreneur, mom to 3, and professional oversharer who has spent a decade building my business and helping others do the same. From wedding floral design to business education, features in Martha Stewart Weddings and Forbes magazine, and even writing and publishing my best-selling memoir, Sleeping with a Stranger, my business has kept growing, evolving, and changing year after year, just like me. Because the best thing about building a strong business is the freedom it gives me to live a full life. And that's what Zimmerman Podcast is all about, sharing real, transparent, in-the-moment reflections about how to live a life, build a business, and lead a family through the good, the hard, and the messy. That's what we're doing each week, right here on Zimmerman Podcast. Welcome to the show. In part 1 of this chapter, Removing Shame and Shedding Limiting Beliefs, I touched on the word should. Here's a little refresher. And anytime you hear the word should thrown around, that's a pretty sure sign that someone is trying to play the shame game. You should really cover up. Do you really think you should be wearing that at your age? You should mind your manners. You should be ashamed of yourself. Ring a bell? Up to this point in this series of coming home to ourselves and the path back to you, each chapter has consisted of 4 parts. But as I began to write the next chapter, I realized I wanted to go a little deeper with this word should and why we need to do our best to eliminate it from our vocabulary altogether. Throughout this journey, we've been working hard on raising our vibrations and being responsible for the energy we give and we surround ourselves with. We've worked on living from soul instead of ego, and we're currently working on removing shame and shedding limiting beliefs. I don't think we can fully remove shame or shed limiting beliefs without dealing with the magnitude of the word should and totally eliminating it from our vocabulary. So while this part 5 is unexpected, it's absolutely necessary. Because the words we say matter. The words we say to ourselves matter. The words we say to others matter. Words speak things into existence. They're a tool of creation. The word should is no good to any of us. Should is an indication of obligation, not desire. In this chapter, Removing Shame and Shedding Limiting Beliefs, we also talked about triggers, identifying them and working through them. The word should is a huge trigger. It's just that it is used so much in our everyday vocabulary, in our everyday lives, that we don't even recognize it. So one more time, should is an indication of obligation. And obligation is defined as the condition of being morally or legally bound to something. So when we tell ourselves that we should do something, we are telling ourselves that we are morally or legally bound to do it. How many times a day do you think you say or think, I should? Well, that is how many times a day that you are telling yourself that you are morally obligated to that task. Not that you're grateful for the opportunity to do the task, not that you're excited about the task. You're obligated. It is absolutely crucial for us to flip the script here. We need to rewire that trigger from one of obligation to one of consideration. Every time you tell yourself that you should do something, you're telling yourself you aren't good enough. You're inviting in negative energy. Think about it. You might clean out your email inbox, or finish organizing your closet, or finally list your kids' outgrown clothes on Facebook Marketplace. Other times, you probably sigh and feel a vague sense of mourning for all the things you're not actually getting done. More often than not, your brain cascades into a series of I shoulds, leaving you too overwhelmed to initiate any of the items on your to do list. I should exercise more. I should sign up to help with the school fundraiser. I should keep my house cleaner. When your brain uses the word should, a word used that signals obligation, duty, or correctness, particularly when criticizing an action, it's taking information from what it believes to be an authoritative source and telling you how you can be better. It turns all the things that you get to do and turns them into obligations. It takes all the things that you haven't gotten to yet and turns them into failures. Should is a terrible authority figure. We're talking about removing shame here, and the word should is like a massive highway leading straight to it. Somewhere between playing with Legos and filling out our first job application, we picked up messages about how we should be. When life catches up to us and we have more balls in the air than we could ever catch at one time, we turn our anger inwards for the ways that we fall short. The word should has become a fixture in our everyday dialogue. We use it in conversations with others as a way of motivating ourselves or keeping ourselves in check. The word should is inherently negative. Using this word results in feelings of inadequacy, anxiety, frustration, and self rejection. Beating ourselves up for what we should have done or telling ourselves who we should be is starting a fight with ourselves. It drains our energy from the tasks and perpetuates a negative self talk cycle. The word should not only implies that you have an obligation to get something done, but that there will be a consequence if you don't. And while this may be true on occasion, should isn't motivating us, it's demotivating us. Instead of funneling our gifts and focus and energy into our strengths, it shifts our focus to our weaknesses until that's all we can see. The word should can also be a sign of an all or nothing mentality. This inflexibility can make you feel stuck because you're unable to consider alternate points of view. Opportunities to learn and grow are missed because you're too busy beating yourself up. How many times have you been unexpectedly interrupted by life in a way that changes your day or your identity for the better? Taking the wrong turn leads you to the best hole in the wall tacos you've ever had. A surprise late in life pregnancy is the missing piece your family didn't know it needed. A just for now job that helps make ends meet leads to a career you never would have otherwise considered. Should could have derailed any of those happy accidents and delayed countless moments of joy along the way. When we say we should do something, it's another way of expressing that whatever we've chosen to do isn't enough. It belittles our choices. Should is critical, creating pressure and breeding insecurity. That's when we say it to ourselves. But it is equally harmful when we use it with others. And why, if we have children, we must eliminate it from our vocabulary because should is judgmental. When you feel like you're losing your mind, I'm here to help you restore your soul. A few years ago, I woke up and felt like everything in my life was a lie. I didn't recognize myself or any of the people around me. For the first time in my life, I questioned everything I had ever been taught or told. I didn't know what was true anymore, and I felt like everything I knew was slipping away from me. I went through a complete dark night of the soul until I was forced, by something much more powerful than me and my fears, to stop running from myself and start facing the truth. That the pain in my life wasn't coming from the world around me, but from the pain inside me. I remember thinking, what if the cause of your pain And the cure for your pain is the same: you. That's what my program, The Path Back to You, is all about. Not starting over, but starting again on a path that will return you to yourself, a path that will heal and refine you, a path that will break you and make you whole. When searching for answers to what felt like an all at once, completely sudden, never ending list of questions with no answers, all I found was the advice: just sit with yourself and heal. All the answers are inside of you. And I remember thinking, gee, thanks. That's helpful. I know I need to heal, and I'm willing and ready to do the work to do that, but how? Where do I begin? Well, it took some time, but after years of therapy, researching on my own, trial and error, mess ups and setbacks, I found my way back home, back to myself. In The Path Back to You, I share with you my own personal story of struggle and trauma as a sacred offering. My hope is that through my story, you can better see yourself. I share with you my darkest moments and the steps I took to find my light, the light I had dimmed for most of my life. Throughout all the heartache I've endured, I've finally found peace, and I want to share my roadmap with you. If any of this resonates with you, trust that this episode found you for a reason. Trust the divine intervention. Those brave enough to have embarked on a healing journey know how incredibly lonely and painful it is. I remember feeling completely isolated, like I didn't even belong in this world anymore. It was scary as hell. But I want you to know you are not alone. While I fully believe healing is a solo journey, I think it's totally okay to have a roadmap and a pathfinder who has gone before you to guide you as you return home to you. Join me on the path back to you. Click the link in the show notes or go to jessicazimmerman.com to learn more. And just for you, podcast listeners can get 15% off with code PATH15. That's PATH15. When we tell others what they should do, we extend our judgment to them. Just like others have no business telling us what to do, the opposite is also true. We don't know what others should do, so there's no reason to use words that suggest otherwise. Research shows that we're more likely to be productive when we find work meaningful, not when we're driven by a fear of punishment. And here's what's interesting: we rarely question the driver behind the should. Where's it coming from? It could be coming from many different places: a literal authority figure, like a boss, or a society driven social norm. If should represents obligation, we have to examine who we feel obligated to. Who is the face or voice behind the guilt? Wherever it's coming from, a spouse, a boss, a parent, we need to free both ourselves and that person from the weight of embodying our should. And we have to ensure we don't become the face or voice of should for our own children and loved ones. Should statements, they fail to inspire us and often result in negative emotions. When we fail to do the thing we tell ourselves that we should do, we feel guilty or resentful towards the person or idea pressuring us. This can lead to increased stress, tense relationships, and decreased productivity. None of this is good for our energy, for keeping our vibrations high. The word should leads to regret. However, or whenever you find yourself using should, you're engaging in an active form of self criticism. We are telling ourselves that we are not enough just as we are. This isn't just dangerous mentally, but also physically. Self rejection creates anxiety and stress in our minds and our bodies, shutting down our brain's ability to problem solve and maintain attention on a new task. The word should creeps into our mind and steals away our most precious resource: our time. How much time do we spend looking backward, beating ourselves up about things that we simply cannot change? This mental practice is criminal, and we have the choice to eliminate it. There are plenty of reasons to be wary of the word should, but this might be the most important one. Should, it doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a single way we should live our life or do our job. We might have dreams or goals, big and small, for the day or for our whole lives, but there's no one way to get there. There's no one path we should follow. So we can stop speaking and acting as if there is. We can stop focusing on should and start focusing on what is. When we eliminate the word should, we move from negativity to positivity, from obligation to gratitude, being drowned by others' voices to hearing our own more clearly. Want to know how to do this practically? You're going to want my workbook. You can find it in my course, The Path Back to You. Go to jessicazimmerman.com to enroll today. Thank you so much for joining me today as we journey together on this path back to you. I hope what you heard resonated with you and you can take it with you into your week. If you're looking for more resources for the journey, go to jessicazimmerman.com. And while you're there, be sure and check out the Path Back to You page. I'll see you next week for our next leg of the journey.